what's best for us. And I'm just telling you to step out of a box, to get away from, as I call the stinking thinking, and start trying things before you deny them. What I'm suggesting here tonight has been proven to work. Not just for Paul Nison. It's been proven to work for the majority of the people that have given it a good try with good understanding. How many people after hearing me right now are going to go home and eat? Wonderful, okay. Just for the camera's sake, nobody raise their hand. We have some liars in the audience. Okay. Okay. The number one thing of health is stop lying. Okay. Okay. Now, here are some examples of the people that have done this, put this into practice, and it worked. Go home and study their work. If you have a problem with what I'm telling you tonight, the problem isn't with what I'm telling you. The problem is what they're telling you. But you can't argue with most of them because they're dead. But what they said worked. What they said worked, and you could follow their information. But they lived a long life before they died. Okay. The first one was a fellow named Hippocrates. Hippocrates is known as the father of medicine. And he's one of the first people to talk about practicing temperance while eating. One of his quotes was, "It's very, very harmful to your health to take more food into the body than it needs." This man said this many, many years ago. Then the next person is Galen, who's a famous Roman physician. He wrote over 1 million pieces of work about health and about temperance and so on. Look his work up. And that was old examples. I mean, these are people from the way back when. You may say, well, they didn't know. That was back then. The soil was better, the food was better. They didn't have American Idol back then, so they had to be to sleep early, right? But let's look at some later examples. Luigi Coronado, a fellow who lived in the 1400s, who at 35 years old was so sick from overeating so much, the doctors told him he didn't have much longer to live. So what did he do? He figured out he was eating too much, so he cut his meals down to 14 ounces a day of food. And only 16 ounces of liquor a day. I think it was 12 ounces of food and 14 ounces of liquor, like water, not like liquor. Just relax. Just relax. We know it's on your mind. I'm sorry, not liquor, liquid. Okay. I just wanted to get a smile from everyone. Okay, so he cut it down to that amount, and he did that. And then when he was in his 90s, I think when he was 91, his great-grandchildren told him, "You've been living such a boring life. Why don't you add to it? Why don't you add a little bit more to your diet?" So after them bothering him so long just to shut them up, he said, "Okay, I'll add a little." And he added just 2 ounces of food to the meal. 2 ounces of food, and within 1 week he got very sick. So when he said, "I'm going to go back to what was working for me," so he went back to what he was doing, and then he got his health back, and he lived in the 1400s to 101 years old. To 101 years old. Then we look at another fellow, and these are all people I studied, and their information was wonderful. John Wesley. Anyone here ever heard of John Wesley? John Wesley, in the 1700s, preached about health. One of the greatest things he said was moderation in food and drink. It's one of the most important things we could do for our emotional, physical, and spiritual health. Then we have another fellow, Joseph Smith, who took that to even another level and said not only what John Wesley said, but said fruits and vegetables are essential. And he brought this message out and made this message more popular during his time, probably than any other one shift in time, to get a message out about eating healthy. Then we have somebody we could resonate with even more, a fellow named Sylvester Graham. Sylvester Graham. Sylvester Graham was a fellow in the 1800s, in the mid-1800s, who started to write about health, and he created a certain kind of cracker that he created, and that's where we get the graham cracker from. But it was nothing that what it is today. Matter of fact, if he was alive today, he wouldn't be too happy of what they've done to it. His thing, it didn't taste good, but it was very healthy for his time. It was a wheat-made cracker. And then we have Dale Lewis. Has anyone here heard of Dale Lewis?
Yes.
Very good. You're paying attention, that's good. We have Dale Lewis in the 1800s. He taught the same things that Sylvester Graham taught, but he added that we should eat 2 times a day. One at 7 o'clock and one at noontime. Or around noontime. That's what he added. So then we have his work, and I already told you of the importance about his work. Then we have a fellow named James Caleb Jackson. Has anyone here ever heard of him? James Jackson was a fellow who was sick, but then he got well through natural methods, and he opened up in New York, in upstate New York, on a water spring. So he opened up a natural health spa that a lot of people went to in those days, and he served fruits and vegetables and so on. He practiced temperance and eating. But what was amazing about his thing, he created another new invention, and he called it granola, which is nothing what it is today. Today, it's one of the most unhealthiest things you can eat. In that big hippie movement of the 70s, they took something that was once healthy, and they changed it to a snack that is miscombined, and it's just not healthy for the body. So the Quaker granola bars you can get from Publix is not the ideal food for your body. And I mean, a lot of people, I think, well, I'm eating healthy, I'm eating granola. It's not what it was went to be. Another great thing about James Jackson's, another thing about James Jackson's place was, in his health spa, there were two special people that went there. One of them was a fellow named Ellen White. Ellen White went on to teach about the Seventh-day Adventist and spoke about the health message found in Scripture. And spoke about temperance as well. As a matter of fact, many of her teachings go well along with Dale Lewis's teachings and all these other people I'm talking about when it comes to health. But there was another fellow that went to James Jackson's spa, and that was John Harvey Kellogg. Anyone here ever heard of Mr. Kellogg? So he was another person that went there. Now here's where we took a little shift in things. We have the Kellogg brothers. The Kellogg brothers created a spa in Battle Creek, Michigan. And they used to do colonics and colon therapy and all the crazy things that people think we're crazy about doing today. But they made a mistake one day, and they left their granola overnight toasting too long or something, and it came out even better than the granola. So that's where they created cornflakes. And then they had a split in the Kellogg brothers because one of them wanted to commercialize that and make cereal out of it, and the other brother said, no, I don't want to do that because I don't want to give this a bad name. So they had a little split, but the one that went on to do the cereal company ended up having a little business that you might have heard of. It's called Kellogg Cereal. And as you can imagine, it's not healthy. So now we have the Kellogg brothers. There's 3 or 4 more people I'm going to talk about, and then we're going to talk about the Daylight Diet program we're going to put into action. The next person is a fellow that went to the Kellogg brothers' place in Battle Creek, Michigan, Charles William Post. Charles William Post. Charles William Post was a fellow that liked the idea of what the Kellogg brothers was doing, and he created a cereal himself, and he called it Grape Nuts. Grape Nut cereal. And then finally, we have a fellow I already spoke about, Arnold Ehret. Arnold Ehret, who kind of took back the commercialism of all this stuff and got back to what we should be doing. Then there's a fellow named William Esser, who I interviewed in my book, The Raw Life. William Esser had a fasting retreat in South Florida, and there's a whole chapter in my book about him, and he used to fast people from all over the world. And I used to hear stories every week. He used to give a lecture and talk about fasting and help people fast. People that never believed they could do it, that fasted for better health. And he lived playing tennis up until his 90s. Then there's a fellow named Stanley Bass, a good friend of mine from Brooklyn. He's still alive. He's 91 years old. And for many years he only ate 1 meal a day. 1 meal a day, and now he eats 2, but now he eats his meals blended because he knows the key is to not overstressing the system. And an amazing thing about all these people I just mentioned, I do not believe, to my knowledge, any of them, they were all in great health, but I don't believe any of them was a 100% raw food eater. Some of them aren't even vegetarians. You do not need to be 100% raw vegetarian to be healthy. You need to practice temperance while eating, and you need to make sure you're not eating when it's laid out, and that's what's the first keys you need to do.